Our knowledge of ancient civilizations is not sufficient. Their motives are not known. Their technological capabilities are poorly known. This is completely true in relation to the creators of polygonal complexes. When we study the traces of their activities, that is based on our vision. What and why could they build? And as a result, we get familiar and understandable temples and palaces, fortresses, observatories, thrones. But in many cases it is difficult and often impossible to even imagine the authentic looks of many of them, and all the more it is impossible to determine exactly why this was done. The same problem with a complete set of complexes. What would be if all iterations were broken? We would never have thought of placing such stones in polygonal complexes. Never. We do not need such objects, but they were, and were in a place of honor. Builders, unlike us, needed them. This is the main problem. We can create analogies only with our needs. We do not know the needs and capabilities of builders. And in the end, a process of recovery is a substitution of cultures and technologies. Incomprehensible is replaced by convenient, so that we can understand, in a way that matches our understanding of the world and what fills it. But in fact, we are not even able to determine the time of creation of polygonal complexes. Blocks do not reveal the age of polygonal structures, and dates are given for related items and markers. We do not know how it was done. Despite all our achievements, we are not able to produce something like this, and even more so. And we don't know the tasks that were solved by their creation. And if we only got objects with the completed construction cycle, we would never have been able to understand many aspects in creating polygonal masonry. However, to our good fortune, among the structures there are several where construction was started, and for some reason it was not completed. This can be in Sacsayhuaman, where many sections of the walls were not finished. This can be observed in Ollantaytambo on the example of the structure with its called 6 stones. It is named after the number of megaliths that make up the front side. There are no megaliths of the sides in the name. They are not so evident. There are a number of things indicating that many of blocks and megaliths used in it were once parts of another cyclopean structure. It looks like it was completely destroyed, or, due to some circumstances, it was not in working condition. It was specially disassembled just as completely. They wanted to build something vital and efficient from its elements, and apparently in something different in construction, but for some reason it's failed. The signs that the blocks have already been used once include deepening of various configurations, which are usually used to connect blocks in masonry. Such notches are made when the blocks have taken their places. Until the block is laid in masonry, there is no sense in making them, and their current location on the block slate and installed in the structure does not correspond to their intended purpose. Here they are not functional, their presence is superfluous, and it is easy to determine from them what was the position of the block in the original masonry. We will return to the elements. Witnesses of secondary use, there are many of them and they are diverse, therefore we will focus on them sequentially in the process of describing the object itself. So, before us is a rock surrounded on 3 sides by megaliths. The lateral sides are formed by megalithic rectangular blocks that are not interconnected. The gaps between them are filled with torn stone. Most megaliths have big bosses, which is very similar to Machu Picchu in so-called main temple. One could say that megaliths are needed in order to maintain the shape of the structure. But on the right, their lower sides are for some reason located on the same level. For this, a mound of untreated stones and small blocks was used. So everything could be more complicated. Something else could be required from megaliths. The megaliths that make up the front side of the structure are also located on the mound of fragmentary stone and polygonal blocks of secondary use. On a rocky basis are only blocks at the base behind megaliths. They are viewed on the right and on the left. The front part has a standard slope for polygonal structures. It rests on a mound of fragmentary stone. The megaliths of the front side are larger than all the others that are available at this level of the complex. Their shape is almost rectangular. Everyone has big bases. On 5 megaliths they are located vertically. Only in the third left is the base in the usual place, below. Normally they should all be located at the bottom of megaliths. And thanks to this feature, we can also say that megaliths are reused, and while 5 of them are placed on their side. On the side of the structure there are also rotated blocks, and between them is a block with a deepening for the bracer. Megalith, lying to the right of vertically located, also has bases. They are unnatural position. They are facing upwards, and a deepening for the bracer, which is superfluous, also speak of the secondary use of this block. Vertically located megaliths, as we see, do not adjoin each other closely. They are at some almost the same distance from each other. The space between them is filled with a tight-fitting blocks insert, and these inserts have all the features of polygonal technology. Configured mating planes and protrusions in the lower parts of the blocks. From the rear, a layer of polygonal masonry adjoins the megaliths. It aligns the back, filling the space between the first and fifth megaliths. The dimensions of the polygonal blocks are selected so that approximately the same thickness of the entire structure is created. Why this was needed is incomprehensible. Polygonal masonry at the back is incomplete. Some blocks in it are not connected to their neighboring ones, although they are already partially configured. At the bottom of the front side are several long blocks. In this case, the configuration of the step in the right of them coincides with the configuration of the step on the right corner megalith. This may indicate that the top of the structure was planned to be aligned with their help. Before this construction there is still an object, which is also a reuse of megalithic blocks. But here they have a horizontal position. On these blocks there is mark of the former co-configuration, and empty are now parts of deepening for the bracer. And on the rightmost block, the former front side with protrusions looks up. The front side of the long block is deployed to the rear. Traces from previous mates are clearly visible. The two smaller blocks seem to be in the same position as in the previous masonry, the front sides and rear in their places, but the deepening on both are also not functional. The back of the covered with masonry is exactly the same as the back of the 6 blocks. It can be seen that the thickness of masonry blocks is also selected taking into account the task of leveling the total thickness of the structure. In the same way, some space is left between the body of the platform and the constructed cover. Similarly, covered is not finished, and where it is finished the space is already full. In the same way, the front side of this building is not finished. There are signs that it should have been built up. Obviously, they were made using the same technology, but in different ways. It seems that they contained a different potential. There is difference in the method of pairing with the base. 6 stones stand on a mound of fragmentary stone, and horizontal blocks are rigidly connected to the rock. When laying and fitting these blocks, it was necessary to do something with the protrusions and recesses that remained on them from the previous co-configurations. It was necessary to bring the joint surfaces to full compliance with each other. We see that they are all in new position for them and adapted to a new place. In addition, they now have protrusions, and they are all in the right places, all from below. It is difficult and in some cases simply impossible to determine by what criterion megaliths were chosen for this structure. It can be assumed that in some cases a certain size was required, but it is noticeable with what ease the builders treated them. They were not bothered by the difficulties associated with the need to give the megaliths the necessary configuration for full pairing with the cliff, or for pairing different sized blocks in the masonry. There were questions about thin inserts between megaliths. Why were they needed if megaliths could be connected directly to each other? What have you achieved? What could not have been achieved simply by joining the megaliths as in the front object? This strange construction is definitely not a temple, not a throne, not a palace, not an observatory, and not a ceremonial complex. Strange in its layout, arrangement, and selection of elements. Everything here is redundant, indicates some kind of subtext. But this subtext is incomprehensible to us. Absolutely. The good thing is that it gives some idea for the nuances of this construction. You can offer as many versions as you wanted to use after building, and it is unlikely that any of the versions will be true. However, there is still one intriguing moment that excites the imagination. If we stand with our backs to the 6 stones, imagining ourselves as the kind of perpendicular to their front surface, and gain the ability to see far and through the mountains, then we will see Cusco and Sacsayhuaman in a straight line, only 40 kilometers away. And after another 300 kilometers along the same straight line, Tiahuanaco will appear in front of us.